I'm Tass Mellis of The Starters.
This is Ben Golliver with the Open Floor Podcast.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ludlow from NBA Inside Stuff.
I'm OG Anunoby of the Toronto Raptors.
Hey, I'm Elena Donan, and welcome to the Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch. Double Clutch.
Double Clutch Podcast.
Welcome to a special episode of the Double Clutch podcast. My name is Josh Coyne, and in this installment, I take a turn away from the ongoing NBA bubble and the surrounding activity and into an interview with a pro with a very, very interesting career. Kevin Ware was a four-star recruit early in his basketball career. He played under Rick Pitino at Louisville and has since played basketball all around the world. Most recently, he landed on our side of the pond to sign with the London Lions as they make a run at the Champions League. I spoke to Kevin about his impressions of London, his high school basketball career, being recruited by Louisville, his famously gruesome injury in college, the subsequent recovery process, speaking to LeBron and Michelle Obama, playing in front of the furious crowds of Greece, and the perception of European basketball in America. So, without further ado, here is my conversation with Kevin Ware. Welcome back into the Double Clutch UK podcast with me, Josh Coyne, and I am joined by the latest addition to the London Lions, Kevin Ware. Kevin, how did this new challenge come about?
Oh, man, I was actually fortunate enough to be able to get the opportunity to play with the Lions through my agent, Nuno Pedresco. Say he had a lot of ties, in London, and just with them playing in the Champions League and everything this year, he kind of felt like this would be the perfect fit, for exposure purposes, for me to really get my name back out there and just playing good basketball, being around other good players too. That's kind of been my main thing. I know, like, when I was in Canada, I was around a lot of talent, but this is by far, like, the most talent I've been around since I was playing at Louisville. So I'm really looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a real big challenge, like you said, but the firepower we got right now, I kind of like our chances a lot.
And you're speaking to me from London now, obviously under very strange circumstances, but what's your first impressions of the city since you arrived?
Man, it's giving me that New York vibe. I'm originally from New York, and it's like super busy. They got us like in Tower Bridge, Aldgate area, like real in downtown in the city. Like, I love it, honestly. I kind of feel right at home. I got a uncle that lives in Southampton, so he's between here and Southampton a lot. I really like it here. I really do like London so far. I know, a lot of things with quarantine are shut down, but from the restaurants I've been to, the food's amazing. They say people are rude here, but everybody's so nice to me, so I'm really liking it, man. I really do.
Yeah, well, they said the same thing about New York. So,
right,
so maybe you feel right at home for that reason. Who knows?
Right at home, man.
You said that your uncle lives in the UK. Had you actually visited the UK before?
I've never been to the UK. I've been to like a few places nearby, but this is my first time in the UK, and it's really dope. Like, I really have been missing out not coming here. I really feel like.
And you recently spoke to our friend of the podcast, Mo, from the Hoop Genius podcast. For a number of reasons, you're well known to the basketball fan base here in the UK. Have you received much feedback since you arrived from the UK basketball fans?
I have a little bit, but I kind of feel like my uncle's a lot more popular here than I am. He played actually in the BBL for a few years, and a lot of people know him. So I've had maybe two people so far stop me on the street, like, yeah, you're Kevin Ware, right? Your uncle used to play here, like that kind of thing. So it's been cool, though, man. It's real dope. I haven't got the full, I guess, love because quarantine and everything and trying to figure out what's what, but I'm loving it, man. I really am.
Cool. So you've got some big boots to fill in terms of your family.
Oh man, most definitely. That's an understatement, honestly.
So that's a really good way to go into kind of where I want to go back in time a little bit, where your love for basketball really began. Who put the ball in your hand and kind of fostered that love for the game?
Honestly, I would say I did. I would watch. My dad would take me to like Rucker Park when we were living in New York to like go see some games. But at a real young age, I just always watched my uncle play professional basketball, and that was just something like I wanted to do. Like I wanted to play basketball. I saw Magic Johnson, a lot of those guys that they were watching back then, and it just always was a fun thing to me. It was always taking my mind off other things, outside of basketball. And still to this day, it's helping me mentally with a lot of different things that go on in my life.
And you obviously stated that you are from New York, but you had an admiration for people like Magic Johnson. Who was your team growing up? Were you a Knicks fan?
Knicks, nah. Knicks is terrible. My dad used to always take me to the games though when they had like Allen Houston and Latrell Sprewell and guys like that. But when I really started like watching NBA basketball, I would say not going into like the classics, but like Gilbert Arenas and Tracy McGrady. I wasn't like the biggest Kobe fan because he was always winning everything. My Kobe love came kind of later in life, but it was more so like guys that were like dogs, like that really just played hard, played both ends of the court. I was a real big Brandon Roy fan at the time too, like a real big Brandon Roy fan. Vince Carter, guys like that.
So for you, it was more about following the players rather than one specific team.
Yeah, it wasn't a team back then. I just picked up little things from each player. Like I feel like a lot of my passing and why I love the pass so much came from Magic Johnson and watching like Jason Kidd. And then when I got my athleticism, it was watching guys like Tracy and Vince. So it was kind of just meshing everybody into one. I kind of feel like because I didn't have like a set team back then, I would say.
You'll find actually that a lot of the people who fall in love with the NBA over here on this side of the pond, they also feel that way, obviously, because they haven't got a regional reason to get into a team. They fall in love with a player, and maybe that will make them follow that team as a result. So you'll find
Exactly.
that a lot over here in terms of NBA fans. But you guys, you later in your high school basketball career, you moved to Georgia, I believe. Is that when you really started to consider that basketball might be a really significant part of your future?
Oh, most definitely. When I was in New York, it wasn't that I wasn't good, but it was just like a bubble of so many different guys, same height, same game, that it was kind of like you really didn't stick out. But once I moved to Georgia and I played my 8th grade year at Stone Mountain Middle School, you could just tell the difference from me and a lot of different guys. And I honestly didn't even believe I was that good until I just had the freedom to play my own game. That just kept transcending. And 9th grade, it just got better. I went to school in the country somewhere, Rockdale County High School. I hated it at first, but that's probably one of the best things for me. Just taking a regular school, the state tournament, state championship, doing things like that kind of really built my confidence and just kept going from there.
And you touched upon, the bubble of people within New York. New York is generally famed for, somewhat flashy point guards, maybe. Is that
Right.
specifically the kind of style that you're referring to that didn't quite
Most
match your game?
definitely. Yeah, most definitely. Like I was flashy to a point, but I just always, even at a young age, I just tried to play the right way. Like I really didn't do too much. A lot of people call me, like I do a lot of dribbling moves and stuff now, but that's just from the fundamentals. I kind of feel like just putting all the work in.
Mm-hmm. And you obviously then were recruited by a legendary college set up in Louisville. What was it like to have such a big institution consider you in the first place?
But before we go to Rick, I gotta give a shout out to my guy Bruce Pearl. I wasn't able to go play for Bruce. I really always looked forward to that. But when Rick came to my home, I want to say I was coming back from like a trip from somewhere with my friends, and like it was just different speaking to him. Like he held himself to a certain statue, and I really didn't see it, and I didn't see it until I actually met him in person. Then from the conversation we had to him just, telling me I'm not going to come in and play right away just because I'm this top kid in high school, it was like a challenge to me almost. I came to the campus, and campus was lovely. It's a beautiful campus. I recommend anybody going to school at Louisville, honestly. But it was just one of those situations where I kind of feel like this would be the perfect fit for me. They were a real defensive-minded school, and I thrived, on my defensive abilities at the time. So it was honestly the perfect situation for me, from the assistant coaches to everybody in the organization, from the players, everybody.
Yeah, and obviously there are some details that are kind of worth swerving around in this conversation. but beyond the obvious recruitment side of things, what was it like working for a coach like Rick Pitino?
It was amazing. And just so everybody know, I didn't have any strippers, I didn't have any strippers on my recruiting trip. So as far as I know, those are just false tales, honestly. But playing for Rick Pitino, he just holds you to a certain standard that I kind of feel like a lot of coaches give you more freedom. But with him, it's the system first, and then you get yours within the system. And I kind of feel like that's what got us our national championship when we did win it that year. We had a chance to win it the year before, but Kentucky had a powerhouse that year with Anthony Davis and Marcus Teague and a lot of those guys. And we just knew that next year, like, nobody was going to beat us. We just had that hunger because Rick kind of installed it in us early, from how hard we were working, just to the games, from film to everything. We knew the end goal already as soon as we lost in 2012.
Yeah, and I'm a Boston Celtics fan over here. So when I think of Rick Pitino, I immediately think of that press conference that he gave. Was that something you ever looked at, or was that ever mentioned?
Which one are you talking about?
It's the one
not the one. You can go ahead.
It's the one where he says, Larry Bird's not walking through that door, Kevin McHale's not walking through that door. It's become really famous among Celtics fans.
I did see that one. Yeah. I did.
It's a classic. So obviously there's some things that that's not even worth talking about. But how do you feel in terms of personally, in terms of emotionally, how do you feel about a large portion of the history of Louisville kind of being erased from the history books?
I mean, the NCAA can erase it, but everybody hates the NCAA, It's just one of those things where we were just put in a tough situation, but everybody in the world knows who won the championship that year. Everybody in the world knows I didn't just have a fake injury, like, people can say whatever they want, but the proof's in the pudding. You could go Google it. We still popping up the same. A lot of my guys still got their rings. I'm pretty sure all of my teammates still have their rings. So they could say it's expunged. We don't have the championship, but at the same time, you can't take away what we accomplished. Everybody in the city knows how important that was for us, along with everybody in the city, honestly, because everybody really was behind us that year. We worked hard. We had some off the court issues, but that had nothing to do with the players,
And you mentioned the injury a moment ago. It really, from a basketball fan's point of view, it really is one of those moments when you kind of remember where you were when it happened. Me personally, obviously, I watched that game in the Elite Eight in 2013. It truly was one of those situations where you just never forget it. Watching it, no. I remember the moment, even at my low level of basketball playing, which, let me tell you, Kevin, is very much underwhelming. I didn't practice for like 2 weeks afterwards because it's such a event for such a gruesome injury to happen. That really is one of those plays where you've done it a million times over and over. Were you made aware of any specific reason why it happened on that occasion?
Honestly, no idea. I know, like, some people asked if I had like shin splits or like if I were having any knee pain or like anything like that, but it was truly just a freak accident. Like, I remember Shane messing up the rotation and he kind of nudging me to go contest the shot. And I guess maybe I don't think that nudge gave me like an extra boost to jump a little higher, but I kind of even tipped the ball like after he shot it. So I was extremely high, and I just came down full velocity on my leg and just gave out. I know we were working really hard, but we were working out, lifting, doing all that stuff for recovery. So it truly was just a freak accident. Even after the fact, I didn't feel any pain. A lot of people thought it was adrenaline, but even after my adrenaline cooled off, it was no pain. And I honestly don't know what to say about it. I've seen the video. It messed me up for a little bit, but after a while, I had to realize myself, like, Kev, it's never gonna happen. You block millions, not millions, but hundreds of shots the same exact way you contested this shot. So it was just getting that confidence back, and it's kind of showing today, because I still go and block shots, still do the same thing I was doing then. So definitely passed it for sure.
Well, that is that shows great mental and physical toughness, and I really admire it. At any point did they? I'm guessing they kind of covered all areas, but was there a certain kind of testing that they did to kind of check the strength of your bones? Because it did feel as though it was a very strange way for your leg to react to that moment. But like you said, it could have just been that extra momentum from the jump.
You mean like after the fact? Like if they checked
After
for
the
anything?
fact, yeah.
It was just, I remember doing like a lot of the basic strengthening things for my like my quads and the build up to my leg, and I would just always get MRIs. Like that was the main thing, going in, seeing the beyond the soft tissue, making sure the bone's healing. And as we just kept doing the progress on it, we would just gradually do more stuff and do more stuff. And I got to give a big, big thank you to Fred Hina. He was our sports trainer at the time. But without Fred, I wouldn't have been able to get back in 6 months. And even though I got back in 6 months, they thought that was too fast, But if it wasn't for Fred, I definitely wouldn't have been able to recover that fast. That's definitely the best trainer I've ever had.
So since then, obviously, we've seen a number of injuries across the sport where kind of people have had a similar reaction around the player who has been injured, and it does go viral or whatever. The one that comes to mind is Gordon Hayward's very different injury, but a very serious injury. Is that one of those ones where you hear about certain players going through things and then having to have a long recovery from a shocking injury? Have you ever reached out to any of these guys with words of support or anything like that?
Yeah, I did send some words of encouragement to Paul George. Tyler Ennis had got hurt overseas. I remember hitting him up. I reached out to Paul George as well when he went through his freak accident. But I kind of feel like I was the one that started, like I started it, and then all these guys started getting this like football injury, because I had spoke to Joe Theismann, football player. I want to say he was a quarterback, played back in the day, and he had like the kind of the same accident I had. It was in the pants, but it was literally the same thing. And a lot of people thought it was more common for football players to get that injury. So when it started happening in basketball, it was just kind of like, man, like it could happen in any sport, kind of a thing,
Yeah. And you say that you started it, but you also started to kind of prove the point that you can come back from it. And that probably
Right.
means a lot to a lot of people.
For sure. I know NBA guys, they take like the full year, they completely rest for the season just to fully recover. I think if I could have, I probably would have just sat the whole year, because I had like my own personal motivation going on at the time, which wasn't a bad thing. But I definitely feel like I rushed it, not to where I hurt anything, but I could have built it up even more. I could have built my body more. I could have got into other things at the time. But everything always happens for a reason. That's really my motto,
Yeah. And speaking of which, the team went on to win the championship that year. How much did that mean to you?
It meant everything, honestly, because if I would have just got hurt, we would have just been back in Kentucky, soaking, mad, and hoping for the best. Because I know when I went down, a lot of guys were just freaked out or all that stuff, But my main thing was looking around, was like, man, we just try to get these guys composed as quick as possible. And that's why, like, everybody was like, gives me kudos for just winning the game, just telling the guy, just play, don't worry about me. But nah, that's really how I felt. Like, forget me right now. You know what I'm saying? We still got a whole second half. Y'all win this game, and we'll worry about everything else at the end of the day. But they did go on and beat the living mess out of Duke that game, and kept going and played Wichita and then played Michigan. And I was just happy. I was more so disappointed that I couldn't play in Atlanta that was my hometown at the time. But like I said, everything happens for a reason. You know, they still lowered the nets for me so I could go down and put the net. So that was really dope. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it was great to see. And you mentioned some of the messages you sent to people, but what about the messages of support that you received? You shared a really wonderful story about Kobe Bryant this week and how he reached out to you when you needed it. Who else did you receive any support from at the time from the basketball
A
world?
lot of guys. Kevin Durant, LeBron reached out. Mark Stoudemire reached out. The biggest one for me would have to be Michelle Obama. I know a lot of people were telling me I was like really like drugged up at the time, but like, oh, Michelle Obama called me. Like that was like a big thing for me. You know, that was probably the highlight. You know, I always tell everybody I never had time to just dwell and be sad for myself. I was always getting motivation from other people. I was always had the motivation in myself that, man, it's just a freak accident. It's just a bone. There's no ligaments. It's not your ACL, MCL. You just got to strengthen your bone and you'll be right back to normal.
So now you just have the former First Lady's number. You guys just talk about basketball whenever you want, I assume.
Man, I wish Michelle see this. Michelle called me.
I think you've got some pretty rough competition there, Kevin, to be honest. But
Oh, nah, I don't want Michelle. Super
I'm
respect to Barack, you know, but
yeah, of course.
that'd be dope, you know, to have a sober conversation with Michelle Obama, man. That'd be amazing. You know,
That'd be awesome.
it's one of the people that you look at up higher up here, you know.
So we touched upon your amazing recovery, and you've gone on to have a really impressive career, you know, in comparison to so many players that would have been put in that situation, which once again, like I said, is a testament to your love of the game and your toughness. But without the injury, what do you think that your ceiling was beforehand?
I was on the boards. I just started playing my best basketball. Like when the Big East tournament started, a lot of people were just talking about me. And it was more so what I was doing on the defensive end that had a lot of people like, wow, this guy can really play. And then they see I can actually play offense. Because I was always kind of like that third guard behind Peyton and Russ, you know, and that was just normal. I'll come in and play my 20-something minutes and they'll finish everything out. But when the tournament came, I remember Peyton getting in foul trouble. I remember Peyton getting in foul trouble against Oregon. And, you know, I had a really good game against Oregon. And that was kind of like, all right, people really starting to talk about me. I remember Charles Barkley making a comment like, yeah, Louisville just lost their best guard, things like that. You know, it was more so disappointing that I didn't reach that, you know, just because of the injury. But it was never something I dwelled on. You know, I probably would have never been able to travel the world and been all these places I've been able to go if I had made it to the NBA. Who knows? But I like the route I'm going now, honestly.
Yeah, and you touched upon that. In 2016, you played in both Finland and Czech Republic, so you really began your professional career. How much of a culture shock was it to end up in countries like Finland and the Czech Republic?
Man, I love Czech, but Finland, off the back, that was tough. You know, I was in a super small town. I always tell everybody, though, I'm super thankful for Kyle Yoki giving me my first job opportunity. The coach Sammy, he didn't think I fit the system well enough. Coach Juicy thought I did, and he's got like a couple championships in the league now. But when I left Finland and went to Czech, and it was more city-like and more people and more interactions and things like that, like I felt like, all right, now I'm starting to experience my overseas experience, and I kind of played really well in Czech.
Yeah, and were you in Prague then, if you were in the big city?
I was in Brno, so I was about not too far from Prague. I think it was an hour and a half. It wasn't too far at all, but Brno was like, I want to say it was the second biggest city, but I'm not 100% sure. But they had like a bunch of different like nice scenery, castles and stuff like that. It was really, really dope, man. Like, then going to Greece the following season, you know, I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to see the overseas experience really. Yeah, it's beautiful over here, even in London. I know London's giving me more like a city vibe. I've seen like the the Tower Bridge and like the castle and stuff over there. But I know I got like so much stuff to explore here, man. I really can't wait.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you certainly have. It's a great city and there's a lot to do. But you spoke then about your time in Greece. So obviously that's when it kind of really stepped up a notch. That was in 2017. The Greek Basketball League is no joke, is it?
Nah, I think we played. Was it Panathinaikos? I think Panathinaikos was like one of our first games. I was just like, sheesh. God, okay, this is EuroLeague. I see what they mean by the separate. You play in your league, but you go play in this other league too. You know, I definitely saw the skill level change. You know, we had a pretty decent team, but Panathinaikos, Olympiacos, like those teams were loaded, man. Like so much talent, and I kind of feel like even now that's like we got a lot of talent like that over here in London, man. Like, so much talent. Like it's gonna be scary playing these Champions League games.
And obviously in Greece, they had a lot of talent on the court, but they have the additional secret weapon of unbelievably crazy fan base. What was it like playing in front of the crowds in Greece?
I want to say, I don't think it was a preseason game. It must have been like some type of cup game where we were playing a team from like the division down. We had to go to their gym. Man, like I've never seen nothing like that. People in there lighting torches and stuff, like going crazy. I'm like, yo, we gotta play in this crowd. Like, how we gonna win this game? We ended up winning the game, and like the fans and stuff were like pissed afterward. Like they were so upset. Ended up almost fighting one of my teammates. Like it was crazy. But I'm like, I love stuff like that.
It gives you the
really
extra
do.
edge.
Yeah, it makes you want to play more. Like people not on your side, and then when you do got fans that are just as interactive as those guys, it makes it like for a great experience. Like I know I'm a big Chelsea fan, so I want to go to. I know I can't go to the Chelsea games right now, but I want to experience that type of football game. You know, I've been
Yeah.
to a few Greece games in Greece, but I know like the fans here are crazy.
It definitely is. The crowds over in Greece, it looks as though the football fan culture has kind of been absorbed by the basketball teams.
Right.
And I feel like that's something that you probably had to explain to some guys over in the States, that it really is kind of a unique experience. I almost clicked off this chat, Kevin, when you said you're a Chelsea fan, but you know what? I'm going to let it go. You know, we can.
Hey, everybody kills me when I say that, man. And what it was, I started playing with them on FIFA, man, and actually started like seeing like, all right, these guys are actually good. I saw a couple games. I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. This is my team. Chelsea's my team.
It's an exciting time to be a Chelsea fan as well. They just got Timo Werner. They're getting Kai Havertz, and they've got a lot of young talent. So I actually think they'll be contending.
Oh, young guys. Yeah. I was looking at that.
Yeah. So, talking about Europe, how do you feel about some of the skepticism over in the States, and especially with like NBA audiences around European players? Because we're seeing a lot of people that are way more surprised than they should be by Luka Doncic's brilliance. How do you feel about that? Do you think we've got a long way to go for people to kind of equally perceive the abilities of European players?
I kind of feel like people that are in the States being oblivious to all the talent in Europe just aren't really either basketball fans, or they really don't have the understanding of what's going on and like where a lot of guys are coming from. A lot of players are coming from overseas now, and it's been like that for years, you know. So I was in Greece watching Luka play, and I knew then like, oh yeah, he's gonna be like extremely good. Like, and he was only 18 at the time. So I'm like, how is an 18-year-old doing this to grown, like full grown men and making it look easy at that? And it wasn't like he was averaging 30 points. It was just he was always making the right play, always making the best decision. And when it came down to crunch time, you don't want the ball in nobody else's hand but his, you know. And I'm not surprised. I'm surprised he didn't go number one. That's the only thing I always think about with Luka. Because you got a 6'8" point guard, you know, who y'all gonna compare him to Dirk Nowitzki? He's not Dirk Nowitzki. He's nowhere close to that, you know. But it's just people being oblivious to the fact that they think the NBA is the best league in the world. It's the most exposed leagues in the world, but there's so much talent throughout the entire world, man. You'll be fully surprised.
Yeah, I mean, Luka's ability to control the game is kind of like especially at his age, and control the pace of the game, control the flow of the game. It's kind of once in a generation stuff, and it's going to be
Well,
amazing.
you know what I'm saying? When you're 10, 11, 12 years old, playing basketball your whole life, bread, eat, sleep, basketball, the stuff he's doing, it becomes second nature. I wish they had stuff like that in the States. Like you just go to school, and when you don't want to go to school no more, all right, I could go play for this club kind of a thing. If they had stuff like that, it would be really dope.
Yeah. So just to segue to the next stage of your career, you ended up in Canada playing for the Lightning. Did you just create a rule for yourself for the rest of your remaining of your career that you're only going to play for teams with London in the name?
Yeah, definitely. London only. I know my main thing with going to Greece was I was having a son. So I just wanted to be as close as possible. So when the time came, I could just be able to fly back, stay for a week or two, not have any issues, and then come back and play. And that was one of probably the most exciting thing I ever had in my life, coming a father, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And you played in that Canadian league. How would you describe the state of basketball in that country?
Getting there. I kind of feel like the newer league they have now brings in a lot more talent than the actual NBL league that was already set up. I know like a lot of like guys from Canada that play overseas, they come back and play there in the summertime. But a good friend of mine, Xavier Moon, he just got MVP again and they won a championship. So hopefully the Toronto Raptors try to call him up or something, because I know they played my guy last year, man. He was doing great with their 905 team. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Nick Nurse. I'm talking to you, Nick. This to Nick Nurse.
Yeah, I assume you know a lot about Nick's history in the UK.
Yeah, he's a big, real, got a lot of love out here.
Yeah, I mean, he was the, as well as coaching in Birmingham, he was also the GM in Brighton, and he was kind of responsible for when Dennis Rodman came and played like 2 games.
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, he brought Dennis over for 2 games.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was on a reality show, and then he came out of the reality show, played 2 games of basketball, and then flew back.
That's crazy.
And I think he spent a lot of time in gentlemen's clubs, but that's a whole podcast to itself. So, as well as the signing of yourself in London, your arrival is very exciting, but the Lions have also got DeAndre Liggins and now Byron Mullins, major experience at a high level there. How much are you looking forward to getting on the court together?
Man, already the chemistry's getting there. Playing with guys like that, you just got to know, like, it's no BS. You got to come ready to pray every day. You got to come to practice every day. You got to be open and listening, because these are guys that play at the level you were trying to get to at one point, So all the advice I could get, all the knowledge I get, I'm always open to it, because they know, they've experienced it. And DeAndre's real cool. I know Byron's just got here, but we hang out a little bit. He's real cool too. So it's gonna be scary, man. Like, we still got Justin, MVP, and Joe, Big Curve. Dirk Williams gonna have a really good year, I want to say. Like, Dirk's a bucket. We got Josh, Chris, Ed, Lucius. Like, it just keeps Jules, Kingsley. The list just keeps going on and on with so much talent we got. Like, when we're practicing, it's like it's no starting 5. It's like when we lose, whoever loses, they want to stay with their team so we can play the same game. But they usually always switch the teams up. So it's really competitive, man. Like, it's super competitive in practice right now.
Yeah, and I think that hopefully if this experiment with the Champions League goes well, and you guys, with that kind of elevated name within the squad, kind of perform as well as you can, I feel as though it will do something, at least in terms of building the reputation of basketball in this country, because we do have a way to go, but it's a really exciting time. So thank you very much for your time today, Kevin. It's great to see you thriving in a professional setting after, one of the most challenging things we've ever seen in basketball history. So really well done. And I wish you the absolute best of luck against every single BBL team except for my Leicester Riders.
I knew you was going. I just knew it was Leicester or Newcastle. I knew it was one or the other. But thank you so much, man. I appreciate you bringing me on your podcast. I'm definitely looking forward to the season. Whenever we can talk again, just let me know.
All right. Thanks, man. Thanks. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks again to Kevin Ware for his time this week, and thank you to you for listening. So be sure to check out our work at doubleclutch.uk. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. Follow us on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Until next time, farewell.